Angela held her crying baby close, rocking back and forth on the worn wooden bench, her heart shattering with every sob. Just beyond her, he stood with another woman dressed in white, smiling, radiant, his hand gently holding hers. Angela collapsed to her knees on the dusty ground. "Franklin, please do not do this to me," Angela gasped, her voice cracking open. Her hands reached out toward him, trembling. "We have a child. Please." She gasped, but he turned his face away as if she were invisible. His newly married bride laughed. Angela's legs buckled. "Please, somebody help me." No one moved. No one stepped forward. But what Franklin didn't know was that karma never forgets. What happened next? How did the woman everyone abandoned become the one everyone envied? So sit back as we dive into this shocking story of abandonment, betrayal. And Angela had never been the kind of woman who demanded attention. She was not loud. She was not flashy. She did not know how to perform beauty the way some women did, the way Franklin's new bride Vivienne did, with effortless cruelty. Angela was the kind of woman whose goodness lived in her hands, in the way she cooked without wasting a single grain of rice, in the way she patched clothes until they could be patched no more, in the way she stayed up through the night when Mirabel had fever, whispering prayers into the child's soft hair. She had married Franklin 5 years ago in a quiet ceremony attended by a handful of relatives and neighbours. There had been no grand celebration, no bride price paid in full, no decorated car, just 2 people standing before a village elder making promises. Angela had meant every word of hers. She had believed, truly believed, that Franklin had meant his too. But Franklin had always carried a restless hunger inside him. He was the kind of man who looked at what he had and saw only what he lacked. He was not cruel in obvious ways. He did not beat Angela or humiliate her in public. But there was a cold distance in him that she could never quite reach across, a gap between them that widened every time he stood near a woman who was richer, smoother, more polished than she was. Vivienne arrived in their village 2 years into the marriage. She came from a merchant family 2 towns away and had chosen their village, people said, because she liked the farmland and the quiet. But Angela suspected Vivienne liked the attention more. She was the kind of beautiful that demanded notice, tall, clear-skinned, draped always in fabric that cost more than most families earned in a month. And she had noticed Franklin, or perhaps Franklin had noticed her first. It didn't matter now. What mattered was that he had made his choice in the most public, most devastating way possible. The day of the wedding, Angela had not known what was happening until she arrived at the square with Mirabel on her back, having heard only that there was a celebration. She had not been told, not warned, not even given the basic dignity of a private conversation. Franklin had simply moved forward, leaving her standing at the edge of his new life like a woman at the wrong door. That night, she returned to their home, or what had been their home, to find that Franklin's relatives had already removed most of the furniture. A cousin she had always been kind to told her, without quite meeting her eyes, that she should collect her things before morning. The house belonged to Franklin's family. It always had. Angela gathered what she could carry with a baby on her back, a change of clothes, a small photograph, the blanket Mirabel had been wrapped in at birth. She walked out into the dark with her daughter and did not look back. The hut Angela found at the edge of the village had been abandoned for 2 years. The roof had a gap wide enough to see stars through, and the walls breathed cold air in winter. But it had a door that could be closed, and that was more than nothing. She cleaned it with her own hands. She plugged the gaps in the walls with mud and dried grass. She laid Mirabel's sleeping mat in the corner where the roof was strongest, and she told herself every single night that this was temporary, that tomorrow would bring something better, that she just had to survive until better arrived. Surviving was harder than she had imagined. Angela took whatever work came her way, grinding pepper at a neighbour's house, fetching water for an elderly man at the end of the road, washing clothes in the stream for a woman who paid her with leftover food instead of money. She did not refuse anything. She could not afford to. Mirabel was 18 months old and still nursing, which was both a blessing and an agony. A blessing because it meant the child was at least getting something. An agony because Angela was not eating enough to sustain them both, and she could feel it in the hollow ache behind her ribs every afternoon when the sun was highest and there was still no food in the hut. The village women watched her struggles with a mixture of pity and judgment. Most leaned toward judgment. The story that circulated, the one that Franklin's family had carefully spread, was that Angela had been a difficult wife. Lazy, they said, stubborn. That she had refused to keep house properly. That she had disrespected her husband's family. That Franklin had been patient for years before finally making the only decision a self-respecting man could make. Angela heard these stories second-hand, filtered through the old woman Mama Efua, who lived near the stream and was one of the few people who still greeted her without looking away. They are saying things that are not true. Mama Efua said one evening, handing Angela a small bundle of dried fish. But people prefer a story that makes sense to them over a truth that makes them uncomfortable. Why does it make them uncomfortable? Angela asked. Because if you did nothing wrong, the old woman said quietly, then they cannot explain why a man would do this to a good woman. And if they cannot explain it, they have to accept that it could happen to any of them. Angela held that answer close for a long time afterward. It did not make the hunger go away, but it helped her understand that the village's cruelty was not a verdict on her character. It was simply fear wearing the mask of judgment. 6 weeks after Angela moved into the broken hut, Mirabel's breathing changed. It started in the night, a thick, rattling sound that did not belong in a child's chest. By morning, the baby's skin was burning and her eyes had gone glassy. Angela knew that look. She had seen it before in a neighbour's child who had been sick with malaria 2 seasons ago. She knew what it meant if not treated quickly. She went to every house she could think of. She knocked on doors that had been open to her before and found them suddenly unavailable. She went to the woman whose clothes she washed, and the woman told her she had no money to spare. She went to a man who had promised her extra pay for harvesting his cassava, and he told her the work was not yet ready. She went to Franklin's aunt, a woman she had cooked for on feast days, a woman who had called her daughter and stood at that door with her sick child whimpering against her chest, and she begged, "Please, not for me, for the child. She is his blood too." The aunt looked at Mirabel for a long moment. Then she looked at Angela. Then she stepped back and closed the door. Angela stood on that doorstep for a full minute. She did not cry. She was past crying. She turned around, shifted Mirabel higher on her chest, and walked. She walked to Franklin's new house next. She had promised herself she would not. She had promised herself that she would never put herself in a position to be dismissed by him again. But her child was sick, and a mother's promises to herself come second to a child's need.
Please watch the full video on YouTube with the link in my comment section or the link on my bio. Thank you.